So, good evening, everybody. It's 6 o'clock, so we'll make a start. Welcome to the Housing, Health and Environment Committee. Item number 1 on the agenda is announcements and the evacuation procedure. A fire drill is not expected, so if the alarm sounds, please evacuate the building quickly and calmly. Please use the stairs and do not use the lifts. Once out of the building, please gather outside the Lloyds Bank on the opposite side of the road. Exit by the door by which you entered the room or by the fire exits, which are clearly indicated by the standard green fire exit signs. If you need any assistance in evacuating the building, please make yourself known to a member of staff. Could I also remind people to turn their mobile phones off or set them to silent? And I'd also like to remind people that this meeting is being live streamed onto the council's YouTube page and will be available to view as well from tomorrow. Item number 2 is apologies. I've received apologies from Councillor Cape and I've received apologies from Councillor Gutteridge. Are there any further apologies? Councillor Kenner.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to give the apologies for Councillor Singh. Thank you.
Thank you. If those 3 can be minuted, please, that would be great. Item number 3 is to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 23rd of June 2022. Could I propose those from the Chair? Did they receive a seconder? They're seconded by Councillor Kenner. I do have Councillor Kandaka, who has indicated that he wishes to speak on this item. Would you like to come in?
Thank you very much, Chair. The minutes are so much better in recent years compared to the sad old days when it used to say Kandaka spoke or whatever. But there was a serious problem with adding things at the end of the agenda. I was very unhappy at what happened at the last meeting. Obviously, I'm not on this panel, which means that when I'm ready to go, I will go. And I'm most disturbed by the way that I was discussed and my things were minuted, that I was posting stuff that was untrue on social media. When actually what I posted on social media was effectively we now found out the cost of converting 196198 Church Road Stocking Forward, and it's got less units than was originally projected. And that seems a very truthful and honest statement. In the newspapers, it predicted that it would have, I think it was 19 units, which dropped to 14. And the cost is about £1.3 million of the buying and the conversion, which if it's 14 units is almost £100,000 per unit. So these things do matter. And I'm very disappointed that there's any other business in the minutes claiming that what I posted on social media was inaccurate. And it not true or factual. Well, what I quoted was the costs, as we were told at the meeting, and the fact the rooms were reduced. One other thing I'd like to point out is it will only have 2 electric charging points.
Councillor, this is about the minutes.
Yeah, I'm just saying, disappointed what was in the minutes. And the minutes also say that the conversion will have 10 EV charging points, which is not right. It's 1 per 10 units, so it'll probably be 2 EV charging points. Thank you, Chair.
I thank you for your points. I'd agree that the details in the minutes are far more better than what they were several years ago, and I think that's partly down to our newer committee officer, Maria, so thank you. As chair, it's my responsibility to allow members of the committee to speak, and councillors are allowed to bring items under any other business. It would not be right for me to refuse them that right. And the minutes that are printed, I mean, the accuracy of those needs to be determined by members, as they will be shortly through a vote. But I dare say that you've been allowed to put your point on the record on video, and I'm sure that the committee notes what you have just stated. Does any member of the committee wish to speak on the minutes? No? In which case they have been proposed and seconded. All those in favour, please show. Against? Abstentions? So that's 5 in favour, 1 against and 1 abstention, so the minutes are carried. They are approved. Item number 4, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations that members would like to declare that haven't already been printed? Councillor Shires.
Yeah, it hasn't been confirmed yet, but I have been asked to join the Warwickshire Parent Carers Voices.
That's great. Maria, can that be minuted, please? Thank you. Item number 5 is public consultation. I've been notified that Mr. Peter Smith would like to speak on item 11A, which is about Church Road in Stockingford. Councillor Kandaka has already spoken on the minute and would also like to speak on item 7, which is about CAMS. And I have 4 statements from Mr. Samuel Margrave on items 9, 10, 12 and 13. Is that correct? I presume? Yes. Thank you. So item number 6 is questions to Cabinet. So as I said earlier, Councillor Gutteridge has sent his apologies. But if there's any written questions that would like to be asked first, we can get those sent formally to Councillor Gutteridge. Are there any questions from the committee? I don't see anyone indicating. I've just got one, if that could be minuted, and it's to do with wildflower meadows. Would Councillor Gutteridge and the Parks Department be able to inform the committee if Parks intends to create more wildflower meadows in the borough, and if so, could he indicate any potential locations? That would be great. Councillor Golby is with us, who's the Cabinet Member for Housing. Are there any questions to Councillor Golby that members would like to ask? I don't see any indications. I've got one. Councillor Golby, we know that the council was successfully awarded £3.1 million as part of the Social Housing Decarbonisation Fund, and we've used that towards the installation of external wall insulation. Could you inform the committee how we're doing with the delivery of that, please?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it was in the news not long ago. We've just completed our 150th conversion, if you like. And it's also quite timely because the decarbonisation fund, although it is slated as decarbonisation, also helps people with combating fuel poverty, which is something that's quite important to me and is something that I've spoken about in the chamber before, and especially with the teams when we're looking at building new properties or retrofitting old ones, is that actually fuel poverty is potentially more important than decarbonisation to residents in the borough, particularly at this point in time when fuel is so costly for everybody. So it is going really well and it is proving to be a benefit to our residents.
Thank you very much for that response, and I hope our thanks to the Housing Department could be minuted, because that really is very good work. Are there any final questions? Councillor Shires.
Oh, thanks. In the last meeting, there was this discussion about Church Road, and I know Councillor Watkins then put in some questions, and they were answered, and I'm sure we've all had those. They came, yeah. And when we asked whether there were any other cheaper alternatives, at the time you said no, there wasn't, and then it's come out about Chivers House. Obviously, this predates me, so I'm kind of getting the information as it comes through. So what happened with regard to Chivers House?
Councillor Golby.
Chivers House, can you... Chilvers House? I'm not entirely sure where you mean. Oh, what I can say is that properties were looked at and discounted because they weren't suitable. So we have a criteria that we needed to meet, and if there were any properties that were looked at, they were discounted against the criteria that we selected against. And he was actually portfolio holder at the time, so perhaps he might want to answer his own questions.
Okay, thanks for that. So I was just clarifying, because obviously you said last time that no, there wasn't, and then we'd had that back through. So I was just clarifying that of what that situation was, which is sort of kind of what scrutiny is about. So it's not necessarily about portfolio holders. I just looked through it all today and thought, I just wanted to clarify.
Councillor Golby.
Yeah, so to reiterate, the decisions were based on a criteria, and if we didn't choose somewhere, it was because the criteria wasn't met, and Councillor Watkins was the portfolio holder at the time when that process was enacted. So I can answer questions after the fact, but for day-to-day, on the spot, as it happened, he was the portfolio holder.
Thank you for your response, Councillor Golby. I can, for what it's worth, in my regular meetings with the Director of Housing, Dawn Dawson, I did actually put this point directly to her about Chilvers House, which is just next to the Griffin Coton Sports Club. The reason why we didn't use that, and I think there's a perfectly decent reason, is because the layout of the building would have been very difficult for us to turn into bedsits, and if we have potentially families or vulnerable people that are in need of that accommodation, it wouldn't be appropriate for us, for example, to put a mother and two daughters in the same property as a single male. That wouldn't be appropriate, and it wouldn't be in accordance with our housing policies. And I think that was the right decision to make. I mean, there's a number of safeguarding issues arising from that if it did go through. But I'm just, yeah, that's the reason I was given, if that answers the question. I don't think there's any more questions. So we'll go, yes, Councillor Golby.
So just to clarify, that to me is the Heath End Road property. So Chilvers House, that's why I wasn't sure what you were talking about. So it's Heath End Road as I know it. Yes, that was discounted. It isn't suitable. It wasn't suitable at the time. And it's actually, I know that Councillor Watkins favoured that property for whatever reason, but it wasn't suitable.
So we now come to item number 7, which is a report from CAMS to provide the committee with an update on Warwickshire children and young people's emotional wellbeing and mental health RISE service. Councillor Kandaka, you've indicated that you would like to speak on this report, and just for clarity, we don't have anyone from the NHS to present it, so if you'd like to make your points, Councillor.
Chair, this is really sad that we haven't got anyone from the NHS and the services here to ask questions. This has come to committee year after year. I remember going in Committee Room A probably 7, 8, 9 years ago when I was first a councillor, and these services were failing. There were people with 104 weeks delay, which when you convert it into years was 2 years delay to even get into what was CAMS service. And we have a massive number of young people who need various types of help. We have lots of problems with, obviously, the eating disorders. We've got lots of people using things like the laughing gas. I found 8 massive canisters of a laughing gas only at the weekend in Weddington. And the services just aren't there other than a few things that are getting up to speed. And reading this report, it seems to be just about part of the CAMS service, the emotional wellbeing bit. And it's a massive service. And there was lots of problems with all the assessments that people weren't getting. And so I think the committee needs to have the CAMS service, or RISE, whatever they're calling this week, here, and also have a lot more performance data, because I say that it does a large amount of different services. We had a very passionate meeting here about a year ago when there were people struggling to get assessments. And I just think this scrutiny committee is not scrutinising because we haven't got the people here to scrutinise. So I would ask that we try and get a deeper look, and also chase up some of the people who were here a year ago and see if their problems have been solved. I know there's a lot of people and a lot of passion here a year ago, and it's just vanished, so I don't know where it's gone. Thank you, Chair.
Well, thank you, and I'd sympathise with some of your comments. We have tried to get them here. but unfortunately legislation doesn't give us the right to sort of summon people to these committees. Could you give us some information on what additional information you'd like the committee to try and gather from CAMS?
I think it would be nice to look at the report from a year ago and actually see what the performance metrics are. Yeah, have the services they said they were going to get better, got better? Because every time they came, they always promised everything's going to get wonderful, don't worry, we're taking on new staff, we're doing reorganisation. And I say, if we did actually pull up the report from them a year ago, one of the great things Scrutiny can do is say, this is where you were a year ago and you said you were going to do X, Y or Z. Have we done it? Are we halfway there? So I think it would be good to do a comparison. Thank you.
So in light of that, maybe if we can go back to CAMS and ask if they can give us some data on waiting times, referral rates, and additional staff in comparison to this time last year, that would be really helpful. I mean, I've seen that you're indicating that's okay, so that can be done. Councillor Shires, if you'd like to come in.
Thank you. Yeah, I read through the report. I've written tons of notes. Again, I was hoping somebody from CAMS would be here because they would need to answer it. They would actually need to come back and say, well, this is the reason, that's the reason. And also, I was really disappointed that it was for Warwickshire as a whole and not actually for Nuneaton and Bedworth. What we need is figures for Nuneaton and Bedworth. Warwickshire, wonderful, that can go to Warwickshire County Council, but we're here for Nuneaton and Bedworth. And if you're going to average out Nuneaton and Bedworth over the rest of Warwickshire, you're not going to get actually a true representation of the services and the services that are affecting us here. So I think it has to be that CAMS do need to come, or they need to send some kind of representative, because there are just so many questions that I had, because it's just so wishy-washy, I think, which doesn't actually give us any data or actually give us any outcomes or any criteria, because a lot of what is said from personal experience is actually inaccurate and it's actually not there, and from conversations I've had with lots and lots of residents about this as well. So yeah, I think there's quite a few questions to be asked on this.
Yeah, I'd agree. And having gone through the report myself, it certainly doesn't match up with some of the anecdotal stories I've read on social media. I have to say, on a personal level, I've never had to use these services, and I don't know anyone who have. So I can't speak from experience, but it certainly doesn't match up to what I read on social media. I think actually I'd like CAMS to come to the next meeting in November. So the report can stand, but it needs to be carried over to the next meeting. I'd like to have someone from CAMS attend alongside the data that we have requested. I think that's a very reasonable request. Councillor Shires, do you want to come back in on that?
Just to also say that if we're having the autism report as well, we need somebody here to actually talk about that, because there's going to be a lot more questions.
Absolutely. Agree. Councillor Kenner?
Thank you, Chair. Like yourself, disappointed that CAMS aren't here to speak on this report. Now, I'd like to ask for just some additional data on top of what's already been asked for, something specific. Relates to the two figures on page 21 and 23. The in total 1,030 referrals to them, some for the mental health support team, and the 222 for the eating disorder specialist. Like I said, I would like a breakdown on both of those figures for Nuneaton and Bedworth, and also how they stack up to last year's report. If there's been any change, any uptick, any downward trends, and not just for Nuneaton and Bedworth, but across Warwickshire as a whole. Because I'd be interested to see if referrals have gone up here or down here compared to the Warwickshire average of up or down in Warwickshire. Thank you.
Absolutely agreed. Yes, and yes, we do need more localised data, because Nuneaton and Bedworth is completely different to Stratford. So, yeah. Okay. Sorry, Councillor Beetham. Yes, please do come in.
Just quickly, again, echoing everyone about it's a awful shame that CAMS hasn't been able to be here this time, but as I said, that should be resolved hopefully at the next meeting. Out of the report, I won't mention going in fully here because it will be at the next meeting, is again with all the finer data, is it's nice to see that work is actually taking place in reviewing the transition periods between 16-25, because from experience and residents, that has been a issue, a continuous issue, that transition stage from when you go from being a child to an adult with these problems. And well, a lot of other areas also suffer from that transition. So it's good to see that here. My question would be some more detail on that transition working group, when results are due, so that perhaps we can call them in after as well. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, agreed, and I can see that our clerk is taking that information down. Any further members? Nope. Okay. So on the subject that this is going to come back to the next meeting with Touchwood, someone from CAM's actually turning up to speak. Are we happy to note the report? Proposed by Councillor Kenner, seconded by me. Any dissent? No? That's great. So we'll go next to item number 8, which is an update from the Joint Strategic Needs Assessment on the current and future wellbeing services. That is on page 25 of the agenda. Does any member have anything specifically they'd like to raise from this report or seek any additional information? Councillor Shires.
Thank you. I don't think anybody's probably here even to answer the questions, are they? So,
say what you want to say.
So my questions were really, what constitutes a child in need, and why have we got so many child in need cases at the moment, and why isn't early help working? What is the reasons behind that? Is it actually we're not getting there sooner? And then it was around of, obviously we've got high deprivation, and the income deprivation around Warwickshire. Again, it's very much looking at the whole of Warwickshire, which isn't, it shows in the maps very much that Nuneaton Bedworth is actually really high of income deprivation, and we're moving down in the deciles with regards to deprivation in 2015-19, and we've got higher obesity, etc. So it would just be nice bit of, a bit more information with regards to actually, again, putting it down to Nuneaton and Bedworth and actually finding out, well, what are the issues about this? It's great having this information, but what is the root cause and what can we do? Because this is, I've dealt with JSNAs and deprivation and income and put numerous reports together and work with academics on looking at root causes. I know the root cause, but I actually want somebody to tell me what the root cause is and what we can do. Because obviously that does have, income deprivation has a massive impact on absolutely everything. And we know we've got massive amounts of fuel poverty, and we're probably going to be experiencing quite a massive crisis with lots of things. We're actually thinking there needs to be somebody here to be saying, right, this is the reason we've got so many children in need cases. This is why early help isn't working. This is why we need more voluntary sectors coming in and supporting statutory bodies. But then actually, then that just feeds in with the previous report, and then also feeds in with the housing one. So it kind of, for me, was going to give me some answers on both that we could have then correlated and actually seen that there is actually that there is a consistency through all, and actually by getting in and dealing with some of the deprivation, we might actually get somewhere to improving life chances, etc.
I think arising from that, if the committee's happy, perhaps if you could essentially delegate myself as the chair and Councillor Shires as the vice chair to meet with the JSNA on the committee's behalf at some point. Is the committee happy with that? I don't see any dissent. Councillor Kenner, do you want to come in?
Thank you, Chair. Will the committee see the outcome of any discussion, and how will that be communicated?
Yeah. We'll present a written report to the committee after the meeting, and we'll try and do that probably before Christmas. Yes. Okay. Councillor Shires.
And we'll also feed back to yourselves at the next housing meeting, and we will take questions and hopefully be able to give you some answers. So if you have got anything that you've read that you want us to look at or speak to JSNA about, pass those questions over to us just in case so that we've got your specific ones as well, and then we can feed that back to you. Okay.
That's great. And I've just had confirmation from the head of housing that we're going to get someone like Kaylee Moore to come to the meeting, and she'll help us with that. So that'd be really good. Any further member on this item? Nope. Okay. So we'll now go on to item number 9, which is the impacts of antisocial behaviour on the housing revenue account. You may recall at the last meeting that we approved a work scrutiny suggestion form to have this come forward to the committee. Nicola, would you like to present your report to the committee?
Thank you, Chair. Before I start presenting a report, I would just like to emphasise that this report focuses on antisocial behaviour relating solely to the housing revenue account, relating to damage caused to council properties only. The report also goes into detail about the effect that antisocial behaviour has on our tenants and officers within the council's housing department. It has become apparent over the past few years that the seriousness of antisocial behaviour in the borough has increased, and the complexity of our cases has also increased significantly. Cases involving mental health and other complex issues such as cuckooing are becoming more and more frequent. Despite officers working hard to manage and deter antisocial behaviour and trying to prevent damage caused to our properties, unfortunately sometimes damage will be caused, and regrettably that is out of our control. In the financial year 2021-2022, the Council have carried out a total of 3 eviction warrants relating to antisocial behaviour. You will see in Appendix 1 a breakdown of costs that the Council have had to pay to get those properties back up to a relettable standard. In addition, there have been a further 3 eviction warrants for this financial year so far. For the financial year 2021-2022, there was a total of £69,530.13 paid out for repairs to 6 properties, all where antisocial behaviour was the cause for tenancies ending. However, the Council have identified that £36,308.30 can be recharged back to those previous tenants so that they can pay for any willful damage that has been caused to those properties. So far this financial year, there's been a total of £1,342.39 paid out in repair costs relating to antisocial behaviour, and £648.35 of that will be recharged back to the previous tenant. As the costs demonstrate, there's been a huge decrease in money paid out for repairs in this financial year compared to last year, and I anticipate that a lot of that is due to the specialist team that was set up early this year. The report also demonstrates how many cases of antisocial behaviour have been reported to my team. For January 2021 to December 2021, there were a total of 561 cases reported. The most common reported categories were noise, drug and alcohol incidents, and harassment and threats. From January this year until August this year, there have already been 350 cases reported. The most common reported categories again are noise, intimidation, harassment and threats, and drug-related incidents. The team have also seen an increase in reports of Class A drugs. The team are quick to respond to all cases reported to them and will take the necessary action they have available to them in order to tackle those reported behaviours. The report highlights how many legal interventions have been taken or applied for. The team have been successful in securing outright possession orders, injunctions, community protection warnings, and other relevant legal notices. In fact, last year, due to the work the team carried out on one particular case, resulted in a custodial sentence being granted. The team were restructured at the beginning of this year, which resulted in 2 specialist teams being created: a tenancy management team and a neighbourhood team. The neighbourhood team consists of 3 specialist antisocial behaviour officers who work across our housing neighbourhoods, responding to reported antisocial behaviour on a daily basis. As stated above, they will take legal action where necessary and will work with peers and external partners to improve behaviour across the borough. The team are looking at trends through statistical information which is collated each month, And as a result of that, it allows us to target resources where we're experiencing high levels of reported behaviour. For example, carrying out additional walkabouts in particular areas with the police, or promoting drop-in sessions for tenants to come and speak to us about any issues they're experiencing. I won't go into too much detail about the social housing white paper as it's very involved, but there is a requirement for the council to support tenants facing antisocial behaviour. There is an emphasis on landlords to be more transparent in relation to how they deliver services, and as a result of this, we'll be sending out surveys each year to tenants, which is mentioned as tenant satisfaction measures in the report. And we do this so that we can establish how satisfied tenants are with our ASB response and service, and we'll be asking for relevant feedback on how we can improve. We'll be providing statistical information to our tenants based in their wards so that you can see what it is we are dealing with in their neighbourhood, and this will be put on our newly formed Facebook page in the form of a dashboard in the New Tenants magazine. Our website has been updated to provide all ASB officer contact details with a link to complete a form to inform us of any issues they have. The team are very ambitious and are passionate about reacting to antisocial behaviour reports and using data to try and prevent it as much as practically possible. As head of service, I'm extremely proud of the dedication and hard work that the team display, as well as showing support to tenants who are victims of sometimes very disturbing behaviour. We'll continue to monitor the impact the team has had in neighbourhoods. There is an appetite for the team to be trained up to present cases in court themselves, as well as working towards an antisocial behaviour accreditation. With support of the team and relevant managers, I'm confident that the team can be very successful, and as a result, the housing revenue account will be protected from unnecessary repairs going forward. Thank you.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Nicola. Before we go on to questions and comments, I do have a public statement from Mr. Samuel Margrave. I will read that out to the committee. So it is as follows. What is the prevalence of antisocial behaviour within town centres, and is there the potential that demolishing the Civic Hall and building homes on the site will increase town centre antisocial behaviour, blighting Bedworth for existing residents? What would the cost in respect of increased ASB to the council via HRA or other budgets if new houses were built in the town centre of Bedworth where the Civic Hall, car park and other town centre and commercial buildings are currently located? Have the police been consulted in respect of the potential increase in ASB due to the council's proposals to demolish the Civic Hall and build residential units in place of commercial town centre building? What will the impact of a demolition site where the Civic Hall is in the town centre have in respect of additional antisocial behaviour? That concludes Mr. Margrave's statement on this item. All I can say is I cannot accept the premise of the argument because the council has not taken a decision to demolish the Civic Hall, as far as I am aware. The council, through Cabinet, has taken a decision not to reopen the building as an entertainment venue, but as far as I'm aware, there's no plans certainly put forward to me to demolish the Civic Hall, and I don't think that's the case for any other councillor at present. But for what it's worth, if there were future plans to do that or planning applications, Warwickshire Police would be consulted through the statutory planning process. So does any member of the committee wish to come in on anything on this item? Councillor Golby, did you want to come in? I'm not a member, but I can... Yes, if you'd like to come in, I see you've indicated.
Just to say that that statement is extremely misleading. There is absolutely, unless you've got a crystal ball, that the stuff that's just been said should not be taken as fact in any way, shape or form. Any house that we build anywhere will go through the same process. We will go through the same planning process. The same statutory consultees will be consulted in any application. So to specifically intimate the town centre ASB will go up, which is the premise of that argument. I can't stand for that, and that because it's not correct. And again, to point out that the Civic Hall has not been an entertainment venue for 2.5 years. And when we're talking about ASB in the town centre, you know, I'm not sure how much ASB is committed by people who want to go and watch Eagles tribute acts, and I'm also not sure how many of the little darlings that commit ASB in the town centre are likely to go and watch Shawaddy Waddy. So equally, I don't think there's any relevance to that statement whatsoever. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for your comments. Open a discussion upon this item. If I can, I do have some things to start off on. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, the figures speak for themselves. I mean, in the last 18 months, from my calculations, we've spent just over £70,000 alone through our HRA on repairs for properties that have been investigated for antisocial behaviour. You know, that is money from the HRA, which could quite easily be spent in better places. We're absolutely right. We have to carry out those repairs, but I'm sure that for what it's worth, we could be using that money to speed up, you know, refurbishments for people in elderly accommodation or independent living. Nicola, on the appendix in the report on page, I can't see the page number, that's the one, yes. Yeah, can you just tell us, it says DLO cost and then Lovell's costs. Can you explain in English what that means? Thank you.
So DLO costs are our in-house repair team costs. So they're repairs that our own team have carried out. Lovell's costs are an external contractor, so where they do kitchens and bathroom refits for us.
Right. Okay. Brilliant. Councillor Shires, did you indicated?
Thanks, Nicola. That's a great report. Thank you for that. And I think for me, it fit in quite nicely with the other two reports that we'd had. And thankfully, you're here to actually answer some questions. Although, like I say, for me, it linked. And I think one thing that actually struck out to me and made me think, a little bit scared for people was the cuckooing. I'd kind of heard of it before, but I don't think sometimes you don't actually bring it to your home, sort of to where you live. And then the conclusion, the antisocial behaviour has been increasing across the board for the last few years, which we know. And I suppose, they were all linked. And what I wanted to know was, do we have the data to actually look at where cuckooing is? Is it happening in particular wards? Because that would be quite useful, I think, for councillors to know, to be on the lookout. And it's talking about working with particularly vulnerable people, so people with mental health issues, lone parents, low income, etc. So again, that sits quite well alongside the JSNA of Nuneaton and Bedworth being really high with regards income, deprivation and general deprivation. And as we know, it's potentially going to get a lot worse. So what are we putting in place to prevent the cuts to services and to income, enabling these gangs to actually target more vulnerable people? Because then I think we're going to find you could potentially have a deprived ward at the moment where people would be perceived as deprived and at more risk of gang behaviour, but actually I think the way things are turning in the more affluent areas where actually there's going to be a high prevalence of debt, that could then, the wheels could turn or the wind could change on that as people's incomes reduce and interest rates go sky high and lose properties, etc. So it is just have we got any plans in place? Are we looking forward to see actually how can we prevent this happening further, particularly as, you know, reduced services are, well, that's just happening, isn't it? We just haven't got any money for anything.
Thank you, Councillor Shires. Yes, we can identify where we've got cases of cuckooing. I was saying earlier actually to Councillor Evans, we've got our statistical information, so we collect information every month on where we've got cases, what cases they are, and that's actually given to Councillor Golby on a monthly basis. So yes, we can identify where we've got it and whatnot, but we also we'll go through sign-ups with people. So when tenants come in and do a sign-up, we'll be able to then capture whether or not they've got any vulnerabilities. If we feel that they could be a victim, then we'll ask them if they need any support from the outset. And if we've got any concerns, then we'll refer them to our tenancy support officer as well. And we will monitor closely. We will carry out extra visits, call them and see if they're okay. I think one of the issues with cuckooing is that although it's coming more to the forefront now, not a lot of people are aware of the signs. So I think it's a case of us getting more publication out there so people can be more aware of the signs of cuckooing, and working with the police to do that. Like I said, we have got tenancy support officers that can help and step in, but I think what we need to do from the outset is, like I just said, is more education, so we can get people coming forward to us for support. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Beetham.
Brilliant, thank you, Chair. First of all, as said earlier, the data in here is absolutely brilliant. We're seeing the trends, we're seeing how hard-working the antisocial behaviour team is within the council. I know when I've raised specific complaints of ASB on behalf of residents and encouraging residents to do so, they've always gave great feedback at the solutions found. And I've got to say it's been very proactive from what I've been viewing on my casework. Yeah, with the cuckooing, it is scary for, well, anybody who knows anybody vulnerable. And I know that yourselves and the police are not so much making it a key focus, but they are inherently aware of it going forward. And so, yeah, I just wanted to put on the record my thanks, and from residents I've talked to, my thanks to the team. Thank you.
Councillor Kenner.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just before I begin, probably just like to thank Councillor Golby for incredibly hard work with the housing team, on top of having a very full-time job, implementing a system that's driven such positive changes in only about 18 months. And I know that the work is very close to the hearts of people in Barpool and Stockingford, so I'm very pleased to see that there's now a full service transformation program in place to try and better target the issues based on data and facts. And I think that's partly due to strong portfolio support of the housing team to allow them the freedom to carry out the work that's so important to the council. So I would like to thank them, the portfolio holder and the housing team, for their incredibly hard work and what they've been doing. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Are there any additional members of the committee who want to speak? No? Okay. In which case, in terms of the recommendation, obviously it's one that we note the report, but I'd also like to add an additional recommendation that effectively the housing department works with the communications department to start a communications campaign highlighting the cost of this to our taxpayers, because I really think it's important that this financial information is put into the public domain, and I think it's important that people understand that the council does have its financial pressures both in the general fund and in the housing revenue account, and antisocial behaviour that is being committed by a very, very small minority of our tenants really is causing lots of complex issues. So I would, if the committee is minded to accept that as a recommendation, that's seconded by Councillor Beetham. I was going to say something and it's completely, I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, and the report from Kayleigh that Kayleigh's done about the more detailed in depth. Yes, from the walkabouts, the estate walkabouts. If that could be copied to all members of the committee just for information, that would be really good. I think we'd all like to see that. In which case, those are the two recommendations, been seconded by Councillor Beetham. Are we all agreed with that? Any dissent? No? They are approved. Thank you. Okay, so we now go to item number 10, which is the Integrated Performance Report, first quarter 2022-2023. That is on page 62. And as is always the case, we have Steve Gore, who is going to present this report to the committee. Steve, can you hear us?
Yes, I can, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. If you just want to, you're there. Yes, hi.
Yeah.
If you want to say anything to the committee, you can do so.
Yeah, I'll run through the summary. I've got one or two points to make on content in relation to Appendix B, the Strategic Risk Register, but I'll pick those up as I go through the summary. For the first quarter 2022-23, in relation to Appendix A, the first thing to say is that no finance data was available during the first quarter due to ongoing issues with staff turnover and recruitment. But on a positive note, I've been informed that finance data will be available for the second quarter meeting on the 24th of November. So that said, in relation to Appendix A for this time, it shows that of the 7 measures, 1 has improved, 3 declined, and 3 have stayed the same. 3 declined measures are length of stay in bed and breakfast accommodation, processing of private sector disabled facility grants, and relet of property end-to-end times. In relation to Appendix B, that's the Strategic Risk Register. It's now tailored for OSPs, so that Appendix B shows now the summary for the complete register, followed by a summary and details of the risks only within the remit of the panel. And at that point, can I refer the panel to page 83 of the agenda? I'll give you a few seconds to find that. So on page 83, you'll see a typical page of the register. On the last round of OSPs, 2 queries were raised. The first related to could risk be identified in order of importance. So now the risk is shown in order of net red, amber or green. Net meaning given the mitigations we've put in place. The other query that was raised was regarding the amount of abbreviations used. And because we're trying to limit the amount of narrative we've got in the register, the most practical solution was basically what we've done, which I just wanted to outline. So if you go reading from left to right, the 4th column, where the abbreviation is first used, the full details are given. Thereafter, just the abbreviations. The only exceptions to this are the end column, far right, risk owner, portfolio holder and scrutiny panel, and in the mitigation owner column, it's not shown on here, but where a director is referenced, because the directors are referenced so often, they're used as an abbreviation. And that's the most practical way of presenting the information, given the space we've got. So in relation to, excuse me, in relation to the first quarter, it shows that with the 4 risks within the remit of this panel, 1 is net red, there are no net amber, and there are 3 net green. The red risk is R1, potential failure to provide adequate accommodation, which is the one you can see there on page 83. The key changes that have happened this time within the remit of the panel, R1 accommodation needs, a new mitigation has been added regarding landlord liaison officers supporting sustainable tenancies in private sector housing, and a planned action has been added to research new initiatives to to promote the best use of housing stock. R5, fear of crime and disorder. A new mitigation has been added regarding a dedicated antisocial behaviour team for landlord services, and a planned action has been added regarding the establishment of a combating drugs partnership. R6, arson, accidental fire. A mitigation has been added relating to the external consultancy support we get to manage fire safety issues. R12, safeguarding. A mitigation has been added relating to referrals and requests for information. Moving on to Appendix C, which is the executive summary to the strategic performance report. At the end of the first quarter, 9 of the key measures were green, 2 were amber and 4 were red. The amber and red risks shown under areas for improvement are processing of new benefits claims, working days lost to short-term sickness absence, short-term return to work interview compliance, agency staff spend, building a better borough monitoring, and health and safety monitoring. Appendix D, the Freedom of Information and Environmental Information Request Summary, shows that of 176 received, 174 were completed, 34 were late, that is over the 20 days deadline, and 2 were outstanding. And finally, Appendix E, the complaint summary, shows that 279 were received, 270 completed, 79 were late, that's over 10 days, and 9 were outstanding. And that completes the summary, Chair.
Steve, thank you very much for your report to us, as always. I do have a public statement under this item from Mr. Samuel Margrave. I will read the statement out as follows. On the issue of FOIs and complaints, the report does not appear to reflect the experience I and other residents have in regard to FOIs being handled. We have received many letters withholding statements in respect of FOIs. There has been a failure to investigate complaints properly or independently and objectively, often with the council just copy and pasting its original response or not properly logging a complaint, including a reluctance to log complaints via the call centre. Will the OSP please look at if FOIs and complaints are being properly recorded and actioned and responded to? In particular, I ask you to look at the number of delay holding letters sent to those who submit an FOI, telling them they won't get the information within 20 days. I have a significant number of these, as do others. I am concerned that this report does not accurately convey to councillors the experience of residents, customers and council taxpayers they are meant to represent. And that is the end of the statement. It would be helpful perhaps for the committee if it's Steve, who is it? His first name's John.
John Sherratt.
John Sherratt, that's the one. Yes, John Sherratt, who's responsible for dealing with freedom of information requests and subject access requests, etc. Would he be able to provide to the committee in writing in the last, let's say 6 months, out of all of the FOIs that we have received, how many of those have essentially received delay and holding letters to say they won't get the information within the 20 days? That would be of interest. Obviously, the Freedom of Information Act 2000 does state very clearly that whilst local authorities and public sector organisations should respond within a reasonable time limit, on some occasions it is the case that the information is of a nature that requires a lot longer to provide a response. But it would be interesting to see, of the FOIs we've had in the last 6 months, how many have received those delay holding letters. And as is always the case for those watching this at home, if you have any personal anecdotal stories that you want to bring to the committee, please do email those to me, and I will personally look at that as chair of the committee, and I will ensure that the committee is made aware of it. Does any member wish to speak on this item? Councillor Beetham.
Perfect, thank you, Chair. So it's just a quick one of clarification, really, because I'm aware that there's probably been a lot of freedom of information requests and complaints come through over the last month or so. But those should be coming to the next meeting, I believe, or the next quarter, because this report is only Q1, which ends in June, I believe. So it's just clarification, basically, that this isn't most as of, let's say, last week, but it is actually of the last quarter. Thank you.
Steve?
Yeah, it is exactly right. It's only the fact that this meeting was delayed, unfortunately, due to the Queen's death, that you've got them so late. The second quarter's due on the 24th of November, so we're not far away, and that'll give the full 6 months.
That's brilliant. I've just got one thing I wanted to raise as well myself. It's with respect to page 71 of the report. I wondered if, I think it would be Jane Grant, or it might even be yourself, Nicola. Would it be possible just to have a written briefing to the committee on what is being done to speed up the processing of private sector disabled facility grants? Because I do see that we are sort of behind on that. Paul Coopy. Oh, it'd be Paul. Okay, fine. Yes. If Paul could, Maria, can you get that sorted if possible? Because I just, it's important that we know what is being done to bring that up to standard, because they are really important. Councillor Golby, you've indicated, so you might be able to provide an answer.
It's largely related to lack of staff, which has recently been sorted. So Paul has been running slightly behind on things because he's not had enough hands to deal with stuff. We have recruited people in post now, so that should actually, going forward, be slightly better for Paul's department. It may save time and effort waiting for a report. That's basically the long and the short of it.
In which case, let's not have the report. Let's at the next meeting, when we see the next quarter, I suspect we will see an improvement. And if not, then I'm sure we can take the matter. Yeah, I'm sure. Very good. Any further member wish to speak on this item? No? Okay, that's great. So the next item is item 11A. So we now come to the work programme suggestion forms. And the first one has been submitted by Councillor Chris Watkins, and it's to scrutinise the reasons behind the purchase of 196 and 198 Church Road. I do have a public speaker on this, Mr. Peter Smith. Mr. Smith, if you want to speak to the committee, you can. Thank you.
The building that's referred to as 196, 198 Church Road was purchased at £625,000. The reason for paying that much for one building, I don't know. It was running as a business, bed and breakfast business, which supplied services to this council for homing the homeless for a number of years. So it was supplying that service to the council for a lot of years, and then apparently the council have bought it on our behalf, high price maybe because they bought it as a going concern, and then claimed that it needed £500,000 to use it for the reason the council had been using it for a lot of years previously. NABCEL you can't look at them. They're a secret organisation. No minutes, nothing. Yeah, they operate in secret, contrary to Sam Croft's remarks the other night, yeah? They operate like a Mason's Lodge, yeah? Maybe they are. Right? But we can't get any information off that organisation. It's a very secretive organisation. It claims to put money back into the borough, yeah? We have no evidence of that. From the profits it makes off its business, one of its part of its mission statement claims to reinvest. Maybe it could reinvest some of its profits into keeping the Civic Hall open. Or maybe there's another agenda for you wanting to demolish it. I don't know. Thank you very much for your time.
As always, Mr. Smith, thank you very much. NABSAL is perfectly open. There's, I don't know if you're aware, but there's something called the NABSAL Shareholder Committee. Now, that's made up of councillors. They are public meetings, so they're indicated on the website. So that'll give you the dates of when the meetings are. They're held in this chamber, and you're more than entitled to attend and speak at the NABSAL shareholder meetings. They are, Mr. Smith. They are. If you type into the search engine, NABSAL Shareholder Committee, you'll be able to see all the previous minutes, when the meetings have been held, what reports and information has been put forward to the committee.
Tried that, yeah.
If, for what it's worth, if you want to send me an email tonight, I can send you the link.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
NABSAL is subject to public scrutiny. They are subject to freedom of information requests. And as for bringing money back to the council, it absolutely does. And the council has actually won national awards for NABSAL's endeavours. In fact, we are one of the leading local authorities in the country, to the extent that other local authorities have basically been copying us in setting up similar community enterprise organisations. So I hope that provides some clarity on the matter. Go on.
Go on. Could you send me the organisations that have benefited from the profits that you claim to, that organisation claims to put back into the community it serves?
The profits come back to the council.
So back into the community, back to the council.
So let me give you an example. NABSAL would purchase a property, for example, which in turn means that there's less of a demand on our HRA account.
We'll leave it there for tonight then.
I
appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
No worries. Thank you for coming.
Try and lose a little bit of the bad feeling. Okay.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Smith. Thank you.
Thank you.
We've got the work programme suggestion form in front of us. Councillor Watkins has asked us to look at basically to see if this was a good value for money, and when other sites were put forward which were less money. Does any member of the committee want to speak on this item? I'll start with Councillor Kenner.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, this particular item has been spoken about in this committee on a number of occasions now, and also at the Cabinet and at full council, I believe, as well, if I'm not mistaken. Happy to be corrected on that. I know there are reviews in place on that will cover this anyway, so I'd be happy to wait until we find out what it is we're actually scrutinising before we go around to scrutinise it. So can I propose that we reject this work programme suggestion form? Thank you, Chair.
So Councillor Kenner has put forward a proposal that the work programme suggestion form is rejected. Does that receive a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Harbison. So we now have a formal recommendation in front of us. Does any member wish to speak to that recommendation? Councillor Beetham.
So 196, 198 Church Road is within my ward, and we have had it contestedly and heatedly debated within this chamber of Scrutiny Cabinet as well. It has been brought up again and again. And the reasons for it, to decide outcome of a review, is to see that things like this cannot happen again, when I believe, I think it was at the last meeting of this, that it pays itself back within 5 to 7 years, 6 years, so bang in the middle. 6 years it pays itself back and will therefore be a net contributor for us. In regards to better use for money, I cannot see a better use when usually, I've forgotten it, is it 50 years usually a purchase needs to be paid back for it considered to be good value. So I think in regards to it was an excellent purchase, and I've talked to Councillor Golby already about this property, and I do not see anything that needs to go to further scrutiny which hasn't already. And as Councillor Kennock had already said, there is something already in place, so I would suggest to ease off officer workload and to wait for that to come forward, and then we can have a look if it's needed. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Beetham. Any other member wish to speak? No. I mean, my view on this is very clear. I mean, we're being asked what further scrutiny can we provide to this. I don't know what more information officers can physically give us. I mean, it clearly is good value for money because it's less of a demand on our HRA account. We're not putting people into bed and breakfasts now. We're putting people into this accommodation instead, which is not only benefits the HRA, but there's actually less money coming in from the general fund on bed and breakfast accommodation. And as it's already been highlighted, the payback 6 years max, that's very good for the public sector. I mean, it's normally 50 odd years. It's very good. So it was a sound financial decision. The other point that I wanted to make as well, and I apologise if it's very arcane and legal, but the decision was made. It was an officer delegated decision. Well, when I was a cabinet member, and I'm sure that Councillor Golby can confirm and concur with this, when an officer comes forward with a delegated decision, you often get a phone call or an email saying, look, just to make you aware, this is what I'm doing in the next few days. Do you have any questions, concerns, objections, etc.? And normally it's in the gift of the cabinet member, if they do have concerns, to say, look, no, I want you to hold fire on this and wait and look into it. And I think we've all been given copies in the response, which confirms that at the time there were 2 cabinet members on the council under the previous administration who were aware of this decision before it was made. So if the cabinet at the time wasn't overly happy with the value for money issue, although there isn't an issue there, but let's say there was, 2 cabinet members could have said, no, put a stop to this. So I don't understand what the issue is. Quite frankly, I think this committee could be doing a better job scrutinising things like autism referral rates. And I'm not too sure that it's something that the housing department can physically provide more information on. I don't know what else could be provided. So there's a recommendation in front of us that we reject the work programme form. I'll have to put that to a vote. So all those in favour, please show. Against? Abstention? So that's 5 in favour of the recommendation, 1 against and 1 abstention. So the work programme form submitted by Councillor Watkins has been rejected. We now come on to item 11B, which is a work programme suggestion form submitted by Councillor Shires about difficult to let properties. I might as well just hand this over to you to explain, because given it's yours.
Thank you. So yeah, I put this in because I thought what would be useful for us to look at, and Councillor Evans and I have had a conversation about it, is actually looking at the amount of difficult properties to let we've got across the borough. I know on my ward we've got a few, and all it is flat to let, etc. And I've spoken previously to the housing about sort of what we're doing about that. Can they be changed? Various things. But obviously these are costing us money, so it's actually a case of what do we need to do? How can we look at reviewing them, working out how many we've got, how much rent we're losing, and actually what we can do with them moving forward. We have a massive housing crisis anyway, and no properties. Is there anything we can do with these properties to actually support support people moving back into accommodation, particularly if they're in emergency accommodation at the moment? Is there a way that we can, I don't know, utilise the flats to prevent people staying in emergency accommodation and going to more permanent accommodation? So it was whether we could scrutinise that at this committee and look for moving away forward and then monitoring that going forward. Thank you.
My vote in this, I think, is a very legitimate request to put forward. So I'm happy for this to go forward. Perhaps by the next meeting, is it on the 24th of November? I would ask that at the next meeting, subject to officer capacity, and if that is an issue, just say that we have a report come forward on. It's on the 24th that we have a report come forward on basically the pockets where we do have difficult to let properties and independent living complexes, including average vacancy rates. And then the committee can further scrutinise that. But that is subject to officer capacity. If the housing department does have delay capacity issues, then that can come forward in the new year. In the new year. Do you want to do the new year? I think we've got a meeting in February. Do you think February would be okay? Better? Yeah. Okay. Go on, yeah.
There's actually a programme of work going on at the moment, and I'd rather have that done and then scrutinise the programme of work than do reports halfway through the programme of work, because we're already looking at this. I didn't actually get sight of this, otherwise I would have told you that that is what we're doing. So I will leave it with you. The decision is yours, but like I say, and also choice-based lettings, we can't force people to take accommodation on if they don't want to go into it. And I may as well answer the question, we can't use it for homeless accommodation either. Legitimately, we can't do that. So there are many reasons why these properties are unlettable, mainly because people just don't want to live in them. So there is a programme of work going on as to what we can do about these difficult to let properties. It's already on my radar, but I would ask that actually this is deferred until we have come out with a solution, and then you can scrutinise the solution.
Councillor Kenner, I see you've indicated.
Thank you, Chair. I think based on everything we already know, I'd like to propose an amendment to the recommendation to reject the work programme suggestion form. Thank you.
Okay, so there's been a recommendation to reject the suggestion form. Does that receive a seconder? That's seconded by Councillor Harbison. Does any member wish to speak specifically on the recommendation? No. Oh, sorry, Councillor Beetham, go on. Yeah.
So very similar to the other suggestion, to clarify my reasons for voting to reject this, is if work is already underway, we should see how it gets set up and starts before the scrutiny happens for that. So once it is set up and that, this is something that I could support looking into. But as it's midway through project, I would say that's taking officer time a bit too much, in my opinion. Thank you.
Okay. Any further member wish to speak on the recommendation? Point of order, Councillor Kenner. Yeah, point of order, Councillor Kenner.
Is this thing on? There we go. Just to confirm, was there a recommendation proposed and seconded originally to pass the work programme? No, so it wasn't seconded. No, sorry, not an amendment then. Thank you.
Yeah, the proposal to reject is the original recommendation. So if there's no further member who wishes to speak on the recommendation, I do need to put it to a vote. So all those in favour of the recommendation to reject, please show. Against? Abstentions? So the recommendation, that's 5 in favour and 2 against. So the work programme suggestion form has been rejected. However, given that I've had it confirmed by the head of housing that it is very much a rolling programme, if perhaps in the new year we could have a just an update report on what's going on in some areas, that would be useful. Yeah? Can that be minuted? That's great. Okay. So we now come to item 12, which is the forward plan. I do have a public statement on this from a Mr. Samuel Margrave. I read the statement as follows. So, why are Cabinet having secret meetings behind closed doors to discuss regeneration projects instead of allowing public consultation and residents to participate in their representative democracy? How do councillors listen to residents' views if they aren't being transparent and open with local people about what they are discussing? How are councillors accountable and making the best decisions if they hide away from public? Why is the Civic Hall either the use of the current building or the promise of a new shiny one and its budget and any related plans not on the forward plan? Why was the Civic Hall not on the forward plan prior to the meeting of Cabinet on the 12th of December 2022, especially when the NHS informed the council they were terminating their contract? They told MBBC this as long as September. Why was this not entered immediately into the forward plan? The controlling group promised not to close the Civic Hall in May 2022 and said demolition was fake news. Why did the forward plan not consider the Civic Hall, updating the business development plan, maintenance or other plans for the Civic Hall, or make preparations to reopen? That is the statement. All I can say is we have nothing to hide. We are an open and transparent council, and that is why on Thursday, the 17th of November, there will be a special meeting of the Finance and Public Services OSP, where there will be a single item to discuss the Civic Hall. That's an open meeting for the public. People can speak at the meeting. And we look forward to hearing people's views at that meeting. Is there any member who wishes to speak on the forward plan? No? Okay. So we now move on to item 13, which is the committee's work programme. Again, I have a statement from Mr. Samuel Margrave. I will read that out as follows. So, why does the leadership board not appear in the forward plan or the constitution, or is not scrutinised or referred to by the OSP? This all-powerful secret decision-making body is where decisions are made according to the leader of the council. What oversight does this committee have within its work programme of the leadership board? Have you ever seen one operate? Can we trust what goes on in secret? Will the OSP consider if decisions are being made in the proper way and a way that is transparent and can be properly scrutinised, or if decisions of the council are being made behind closed doors without the glare of the public or any councillors outside Cabinet? All I can say in response to that is as far as I'm aware, every local authority in the country, whether they be a county council or a parish council, members of that authority have, if they are cabinet members or committee chairs, they have, weekly or monthly meetings with their officers and directors. That is effective governance. That is the best way for cabinet members to ensure that they are up to date with what is going on in their portfolios. I don't understand the issue. I mean, if we're going to go down the route of asking that those meetings are held open, then I do worry that perhaps if there was to be a housing officer who wanted to have a meeting with a resident to discuss a universal credit claim, there's no reason why that wouldn't be private. So yes, some meetings are private for a reason, but all decisions that are made by the council are either made at cabinet or at full council, and those meetings are in the public domain, as Mr. Margrave knows full well, because he is a former councillor and took part in those meetings. Does any member wish to speak on the work programme? Oh, sorry, Councillor Beetham, yes.
So it's just in regards to some of the things which have come up tonight in regards to getting data analysis just for Nuneaton, Bedworth, and in comparison for Warwickshire. May I suggest that any of the reports in here, such as the improving stroke services in Coventry and Warwickshire, if we can explain in an email to whoever is reporting for that. No, it says Kevin Hollis /NHS. If they can have specifically Nuneaton and Bedworth data as well as comparison to Warwickshire, etc. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, absolutely agree. If committee services can stress to everyone that comes forward that whilst it's great to see Warwick's data, we are only interested in Nuneaton and Bedworth. Although if they want to present county as a whole by district for us to compare to other districts, and we're happy to do that. And of course, if we can just add to the work programme that at some point in the new year, maybe the February meeting, if we can have a report on the updates on the rolling programme to some of our difficult to let properties, that would be useful. So, any other member? No? We're happy with the work programme? I don't see any dissent. So we go on to item 14, which is any other items, of which we do have an any other item for business, and that is the report from NHS Coventry Warwickshire on general practice access. Again, we don't have anyone from the NHS to present this report, which is difficult. But if I could possibly, are you going to be? Sorry. Yeah. Yes. Again, I would like them to actually come to the committee, because there are no end of problems with access to GPs in the Nuneaton and Bedworth, and that is supported by evidence from Health Watch in particular. Particularly, I mean, the data that shows that there's been a reduction by 13.5% of GP face-to-face appointments this year in comparison to 2019, which was obviously the year before the pandemic. That's of concern to me. And the other issue at hand is that, let me just get the, I don't think I've quoted it, hold on. Yes. Where it's got basically how people have an appointment, it says, non-face-to-face and unknown 1,227,418. what does that mean? Does that mean the NHS doesn't know how people have accessed their GP? That makes no sense. If 1.2 million people in Warwickshire and Coventry, if the NHS don't hold that data, that concerns me. So actually, I would like the NHS to come forward to a future meeting. In terms of specific information, well, we have no end of anecdotal stories on social media of issues with telephone lines at GP surgeries. You know, that is something that I think the committee would like to know what is being done. I mean, the other issue is as well is, you know, I know of some surgeries in the county that provide the ability to book appointments online, but some don't. Why is that? Why is there, you know, a disparity in that? So I do think the NHS need to come forward to a future meeting. Councillor Kenner.
Thanks, Chair. Just to come in on a couple of your points there. The first one is on the question of what do we scrutinise from this. I think from the gist of what you're explaining there is it sounds like you'd like more of a focus on like the first section of this briefing note, if you can call it that, the total appointment activity, just the numbers, how it's changed, and where we can get definitions on those terms that don't provide much clarity. But on the second point, on why some GP practices operate differently from others, surely that's not an NHS responsibility, because GPs are, in effect, still private organisations that can operate how they want. GPs got their contract sorted first with the NHS back in the 40s. So I'm just wondering, is that actually in our remit to be able to scrutinise?
Yes, it is, in my view, because NHS Coventry and Warwickshire, as far as I'm aware, have responsibilities around contract monitoring. And if they are agreeing to contracts which are not stipulating that, you know, for example, they should be providing the ability to book appointments online, then I think we'd like to know why that is. But I do think it's important that they come forward, because I think there's a lot of anecdotal issues that we should be able to put to them directly. Did you indicate, Councillor Beetham? Did you want to come in? Yes, I've got you down.
Brilliant. Thank you, Chair. So it's going to be the same old story with me that I've said. It says that it's in general practice in Coventry and Warwickshire as a whole. So again, getting it precise to Nuneaton, Bedworth, and in comparison to Warwickshire. I do state Warwickshire instead of Coventry because, of course, it's a total different of fish when you're in a city in comparison to us. Apart from that, I agree. Face-to-face appointments, the appointment data, how it's done, and if possible, how long people are kept on the phone calls, etc. Whether they have that data as CWPT or whether it's up to GPs to hold that data, I'm not aware, but it's a question that I think should be asked. Thank you, Chair.
Yes. I think they do hold that data, because they certainly do for the equivalent in Birmingham and Solihull, I know, hold that data. I don't know if it's different in Coventry and Warwickshire. It may be, but the GP surgeries themselves will definitely hold that data, and they should be putting that forward to NHS Coventry and Warwickshire. So yeah, you've got that noted down. That would be interesting to see. I've got Councillor Shires, and then I'll come back to Councillor Kenner. Councillor Shires.
Thank you. Yeah, obviously, echoing what others have said, the fact that it's Coventry and Warwickshire, really, there's nothing from Nuneaton and Bedworth. Also, appointments within 14 days or on the same day. Yeah, okay. We need to look at, we need to see what's happening in Nuneaton and Bedworth, because if you haven't got through to somebody within 3 minutes of 8 o'clock in the morning, you're not going to see anybody until 2 o'clock, and they're not now booking appointments in for later in the day unless you're ringing at certain times. So I think that needs to be looked at. With regards your point, Councillor Kenner, I think it would come under with, online appointments. That would come under, I think, enhanced accessibility, enhanced access and accessibility for people, potentially mobility issues. So I think that could come under this report of actually showing how they demonstrate to be able to meet the needs of people. So I think we could ask for them to put that in the report. Certainly the winter planning, particularly with gas and electricity going up, we need to know what GPs and the NHS are looking at doing to support people, and to making sure people are safe. And it would be good to see, with regard to the workforce, actually how many GPs we've got in Nuneaton and Bedworth, how many in particular areas, and what the potential increase is going to be as we have more housing developments being made, so we can actually meet that moving forward. Because we need to know, because if they're not going to recruit anymore, we're all going to stay the same, and people are going to retire, and it's going to get less. Actually, we've got potentially another crisis coming along from that. So I think we need to see what they're looking moving forward. It'd also be good to see what their nurses are now doing, and what actually they're able to advise on. A lot of things now you speak to a nurse rather than a doctor, so HRT, which fortunately I know all about, you can't actually get to speak to a doctor. You could speak to a nurse, but then a nurse can't answer questions, etc. So it's just to see actually whose remit is what nurses are being used for. Yeah, I suppose we can ask all of that, but we just need them to drill it right down to being Nuneaton and Bedworth, and potentially by wards and areas as well, because there's going to be different things happening in Camp Hill compared to Whitestone, compared to Attleborough, compared to Weddington, those kind of things. There'll be different demographics depending on, but definitely not to Coventry. Coventry's a young, yeah, it's a completely young demographic compared to us. They're more university students, so it's going to look very, very different. Thank you.
Okay, and I did see that Councillor Kenner wanted to come in. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Just on the point of like the online stuff, what GPs have to and have not to statutorily to do. Just remember, like, whatever we... Oh, sorry, on that point, so I'm getting my points mixed up in my head. Remember, the new GP's contract is only a couple of months old. There's very little data for this contract period that we can actually look at. So we've got the January to July figures for the appointments in here, but we're only going to have 3 or 4 months to look at for the GPs. But it looks like it's going to be the contract. We'll be looking at the previous year's contract, not what they have to do now, whether they follow the practice and guidelines of their contract over the previous year. So the data's actually there and actually exists. Because I doubt that the NHS will even hold the information yet on the first 5 months of the contract, because it sounds like out of a reporting window. It sounds like they'll scrutinise it retrospectively to make sure it was followed at the time of being in effect. But also on the other point of scrutinising this, it's quite an insightful document. Remember, it's not within the remit of this council. We can look at it because it affects, the council can scrutinise whatever it chooses to. But remember, we're not the health authority for Warwickshire. Warwickshire County Council is. So whatever we find, whatever our findings are, we can't actually make any difference, because it's not the Borough Council's job to make those differences. It's the county councils. So I'm just concerned about the use of not just officer time, but this committee's time, and also the NHS's time, and also the county council's time, because this is going to require so many bodies and organisations to come together to really rip apart this information and dissect it. And it's like, we have to watch how we spend council taxpayer money in the wisest way possible. It's not this authority's job to look at health. But also, I would just like to make the note of potential crises about doctors and nurses. Remember, there are more NHS health professionals than ever before in the NHS. Over the last 2 years, we've seen massive growth of both doctors and nurses across the entire NHS, thanks to the government's investment into the NHS. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, NHS has had record levels of funding from the government, and yes, there are clearly issues, but let's actually, shout out about that. That's really important to talk about. I did see that you wanted to come in again, if you like, but I don't want to debate on this because.
I mean, the thing is, we've been asked to look at it. We've been asked to feedback what we'd like to look at and what we'd like to scrutinise. And in a scrutiny, it's non-political. So what we're looking at is this. And I think feeding back to people that have elected us, what we actually need to do is we need to have the information behind us so that it prevents us going and asking if we know what's actually happening around the borough. It doesn't, we're not asking for massive amounts. And once they've put it out, it will be easy then to replicate that going forward. I mean, they've asked us what we want to scrutinise. I don't think any of us think we're going to change the NHS or the health service from being sat in here, but actually I think it would be useful to know, because I'm asked questions by residents and I then go to public health, to the NHS, ask the questions there, and we've been asked to say what would we like at the end of the day.
Final point, yes, and then we need to move on.
Right. Thank you, Jack. I completely appreciate and understand what you're saying. It is important to know what's happening when we get questions from residents, from even loved ones, from everything. I'm just wondering to what end can we use that knowledge? I think the best forum to go is to go to the Health Overview and Scrutiny Committee at the County Council, because that's where this information is properly and rightfully chaired by our portfolio holder over on the other side. So that is the forum to do that, where you can ask questions and get that information straight from the horse's mouth, rather than going to ask the NHS and the County Council to dissect who knows how many data points if it's been looked at on a ward-by-ward level. I completely understand why you want to raise this, but it's to what end are we working towards here, where the alternatives are out there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, right. Well, unless any member wishes to raise any additional points from the report, I think we've concluded on that. Yep. In which case, there's no further items to bring to committee, so I declare the meeting closed. Thank you.